call this meeting of the Clackamas County Commission to order and invite you to rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the first item we have is a presentation, and I believe we have Mike Bondi here from Extension and 4-H, and he is going to talk to us about 4-H and the 4-H experience. And this is especially a good time for that because next week is what? The Clackamas County Fair, which is kind of the high point of the year for 4-H and many other people. So, Mr. Bondi.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, I'm proud to have the opportunity to spend just a moment with you talking about Extension and 4-H today. Oregon State University, interestingly, is celebrating its 100th or centennial this year, 100 years of service to the citizens of the state of Oregon. We're recognizing this important milestone in several ways here in Clackamas County. 2 weeks ago, the Clackamas County Extension staff hosted an open house at our office here on the Red Soils campus. We appreciated the support of the business community, Oregon City and North Clackamas Chambers of Commerce, and dozens of citizens who came out that day to share that moment. In particular, we thank the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners for your participation too. Commission Chair Lehan and Commissioner Bernard attended and spoke at the event. The open house introduced the public to our new Extension Annex located adjacent to the Extension office and housing now our meeting room as well as a demonstration kitchen. And the new Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service District that was created by voters in 2008 has provided expanded opportunities to serve our citizens, and we appreciate the special relationship that we now enjoy with our county partner and look forward to many years of working together. The history of Extension in Clackamas County is an interesting story. The Extension service here was established by the county commissioners in 1917. And although we weren't the first county in the state to bring the university to the community, we did play a key role at that time in this area, improving rural life, bringing new agricultural and farming practices to the community, family and home living practices, and of course environmental practices and improvements. Of special note, I believe today is our youth development program called 4-H and how it came to be. Before Extension existed in this county, there was the beginnings of it that was called the Boys and Girls Club. That is now evolved some 100 years later in this county to be 4-H. With us today in just a moment is going to be Gilbert Shibley. He's going to provide you a very special kind of connection to the history of Extension and 4-H in this county. 4-H continues today now, some 100 years later, as a vibrant educational and youth development program for young people. Clackamas County 4-H includes more than 1,100 youth in 167 different clubs. We have the largest 4-H club program in the state of Oregon. Nearly 400 adult volunteers work with these youth to teach and to guide their learning. And we will have also today with us two of our current 4-Hers, Angela Krieger and Kelly Anderson, who are going to be our connection to the current face of 4-H in Clackamas County and share their stories as well as the future.
Should we invite them up here so that they could be sitting here whilst you're talking about this topic?
Sure, that would be great.
Why don't we invite up our 4-H guests and Gilbert Shibley and Angela Krieger, Kelly Anderson, and that will.
So let me wrap up by saying that in addition, 4-H, so folks realize, is a lot more than our club program. We also work in the public school system with science-based school enrichment programming and teacher education workshops. More than 25 schools are currently participating with us in our 4-H curricula that is serving 1,300 youth in programs like the Incredible Egg, Fish Stewards, Forestry Field Trips, and Wildlife Stewards here in Clackamas County. The face of 4-H has changed over the years. Today, there's more youth participating in 4-H that live in town and in the cities than in the country. Horse clubs, however, are our largest segment of 4-H in Clackamas County, with more than 400 kids just doing horse. Photography is our next largest club with 200 youth, followed by food and nutrition, art, clothing and textiles, and horticulture. Dog clubs are becoming popular. Technology, science, and engineering clubs are starting, and our more recent addition that's caught the interest of a lot of people are reptile clubs. That brings us to County Fair. This year, August 16th through 21st, starting next Tuesday at the Clackamas County Event Center in Canby. County Fair is a unique opportunity to see our kids in action, to see examples of the work they do in these different clubs and what they've learned. Competitions, judging, demonstrations, presentations can all be seen for our youth working with livestock, home living project, natural resource topics, and many others. And I just will close by highlighting a couple of the special and kind of new things that people might want to take advantage of. We have Iron Chef starting this year, so we've got 5 different teams working on Wednesday afternoon in the 4-H building in an Iron Chef kind of program where they get a mystery kind of a menu and they have to create it. We have a rabbit agility program, which is a unique combination of youth working with elderly in a care center in rabbit agility. So they'll be doing demonstrations each day at the fairgrounds. 5 p.m. on Saturday is Fashion Review, which is always a highlight of the fair where the kids demonstrate and show off what they've made with their hands. And then finally, of course, Master Showmanship is always one of the biggest events at County Fair where all the livestock are shown. So with that, I'm going to close and ask Gilbert to share.
Good morning. 100 years ago, in our farming community of Springwater, my dad was a boy of 13. One way he could learn was by doing projects in a club that later became 4-H. He built a model log cabin out of 42 different species of Oregon wood, and it won first prize at the state fair. That prize was a young pig sent to him by train from Iowa, and it helped launch his career in farming. Our family has been on that farm and forest land for 147 years, learning from the land and also from the Extension Service. 25 of us have been in 4-H as members or club leaders. All 5 of my siblings and I have had careers in agriculture or education or both. I myself have now lived exactly half of that 147 years, and am this year working and learning on that same land and with that same Extension Service. In the 1930s, my dad, Everett Shibley, helped the county agent run the first field trials testing how Chewings fescue would work as a seed crop on our red soils in the foothills. In the 40s, I followed those 2 around on our fields as they admired the results. No more annual plowing and better profit per acre. In the 50s, I also walked with my dad and the county farm forester as they discussed how long before the young trees on land my dad had recently purchased could become a timber crop. I've since harvested some of those trees. I too won a prize in 4-H at age 13. That was the year I got to show my beef cow and calf at the Clackamas County Fair. With that calf, I took champion in showmanship. My trophy? Simply a lifelong love of learning by doing, the 4-H way. Next week, I plan to visit that very spot in the barn where I slept, not 6 feet from the calf that had made me so proud. And I will admire the current diversity of 4-H projects and exhibits that Mike just mentioned. Halfway through my life to date, I got hired as an extension agent for 4-H and youth development in Multnomah County. I kept at it in the metro area for 12 years, then resigned because my dad had died a few years earlier, and it was my turn to take care of the family place. I had already been learning forestry from OSU Extension programs, but I stepped up the pace on that as my land stewardship responsibilities expanded. For the past 18 years, I have been a volunteer educator as an OSU Master Woodland Manager. Most of that time, I have also worked part-time as Extension Forestry Assistant. Extension has been good for me and my family. We are grateful to county officials who have, over the years, been steady partners with OSU in bringing such practical and reliable education to families like ours.
Angela.
Well, I
Just
show.
pull a mic over by you.
My name's Angela, and thank you for having me today. And I'm in the Sandy Livestock 4-H Club and Kids R Us and Night One Riders. I also show horses along with my beef cattle. I have Herefords. Right now, this year I'm taking 5 cattle to fair, 2 steers, a cow-calf pair, and a heifer. And 4-H is just, it's an amazing opportunity for our youth. It's what my life is about. Like, I would have nothing to do during the summer if I didn't have 4-H. I mean, I'm out all the time feeding my animals, working them, getting them ready for fair, and it's so fun, and it involves kids. There's also so much other things. There's like sewing and photography, like she does those things. I do them too. And the horse program is huge. Like, I got into horses, and when I used to show beef, I was wondering why there weren't any kids, like horses there. But there's so many kids, they fill all the barns full of horses. And that's a good program too. It's amazing. And I'm very glad when they passed the act that kept 4-H going, that it keeps going. And the state fair is very fun, and it's so laid back. And I think you guys all should come to county fair and see the animals.
Definitely.
Thank you, Angela. Kelly.
My name is Kelly Anderson. I'm 17 years old, and I will be a senior at Lake Oswego High School this year. And I've been doing 4-H since 2nd grade. And mostly my projects are more in the home ec division of 4-H because I live in the city and I don't have any animals. But my projects include like photography, sewing, clothing and textiles, horticulture, foods, and leadership. And my first sewing project was a scrunchie. And my skills have been, developing all this time. And this was my project last year. And I made this yellow dress, and it has an invisible zipper, and it's all lined and everything. And 4-H it's a really great program, and it's really sort of influenced the person that I am today. And it's helped me to develop confidence in myself as well as leadership qualities. And 4-H also has a heavy influence on community service and sort of giving back to your community. And I've done a lot more community service than I would have if I hadn't been in 4-H. It's also helped me to set goals for my future, which will allow me to be a more successful individual. But most importantly, 4-H has given me the opportunity to form bonds with my leader, my club members, and my community, which will last for a lifetime.
And did you win any prizes?
Oh, yes, I did. I forgot to mention that. I won a champion ribbon and then an honorable mention, as well as the opportunity to attend state fair.
Excellent, excellent.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today to talk about Extension and 4-H and County Fair. And again, opening day, Tuesday next week, it'll be Kids Day.
So we will, don't get up and leave yet. We will come down and do a photo op, but I want to give the commissioners an opportunity to comment if they are interested.
I had an opportunity to attend the celebration, and what really kind of amazed me, I always consider myself a big city kid, Milwaukee, but we couldn't have animals either in our community. We still can't. But there's so much more to this program in the schools, robotics, for example. So if you do live in a city, you live in Lake Oswego, there are lots of opportunities for kids to learn many things that all of us thought 4-H was all about animals. And now it is expanded into the schools. I had an opportunity to speak to one of those individuals who works with the schools, and I was amazed. All the programs, mathematics and engineering, and just so many great programs that city kids can also get involved in. So thank you very much for your expanding the and adapting to the changing environment.
So I appreciate that, and I would just say, too, that that expansion that we see, especially coming now in the next several years as a result of the fact that we have a district, the Clackamas County Extension 4-H Service District, that allows us to now expand our capacity and reach more and more youth. Thank you.
And
Yeah, I was going to say first, thank you for coming and talking with us. But as you know, as Angela said, Angela lives out. She's my neighbor out in Eagle Creek, and as she said, the 4-H and the fair represent an invaluable resource for our rural communities. That if, without that, like she said, she don't know what she would do with her day. And that's true for so many of the kids out in the rural areas that we don't have as easy access to opportunities in the urban areas as the folks out in the rural areas. And 4-H represents a year-long preparation for the fair. I mean, I know if you walk through the fair, I remember a couple years ago saying, "Oh, look, here's photography from Angela. Oh, and here's some art in the art atrium. And she's got a collection in the hobby hall. And she's got her cows." And it's so. But that's true for so many of the active 4-H youth like Angela out in our communities. They prepare year-round for the fair, and it's so it isn't just getting ready for fair in the summer. It's something to do all year long. So I applaud you and everything you do for the fair, and everyone should come out and look at Angela's cows.
Thank you.
Any other, mention anything? Or?
Well, I just want to acknowledge that how much I appreciate the fact that 4-H is in existence, and there's I guess what I recognize as a newfound interest, I think, in farming and agriculture, and it's refreshing as our economic times, become or seemingly become more difficult, and knowing how important food is to our life, sustaining life, and that. There's been concern that farms are dying off in this country, and without our youth and our youth programs and bringing people in to the industry and realizing that we don't have a future, and so it's great to see this. It's very refreshing, and just to let people know out there that I know we go to the store and we take everything in the store for granted, but we don't sometimes think about the hard work and the people and the lives that are behind that. So I have great respect. I think you deserve all the respect and dignity for the industry that you're looking at, that you're involved with, and it's appreciated. So thank you.
And, you can say something?
Oh, yes, I will. I have a 9-year-old daughter. I live in Lake Oswego, too. And I have a 9-year-old daughter who recently started sewing. And she took a sewing camp and learned how to make a pair of shorts and a shirt and a bag. And the amount of satisfaction, I mean, one, that's a miracle in my opinion. But two, the amount of satisfaction that she gets and the artistic expression and the self-sufficiency and the hand-eye coordination, those are all great skills and really important. And so both in the agricultural expression of 4-H and in the other self-sufficiency, handwork parts of 4-H, I think it's great stuff. And congratulations to both of you. And thank you for coming in to help us understand more about what you do.
Likewise, hard to top all the things that have been said about 4-H and the fair. I do want to encourage everyone who comes to the fair to take their time. A lot of people come to see the rides and the animals, but you should take your time and look at the displays, the hobby collections, the crafts, the photography, the nutrition things, and in particular, I would say one of the areas that hasn't been commented on so much is the nutrition piece. But nutrition and part of extension and of 4-H is really important, I think, these days with the obesity epidemic and the decline generally in personal nutrition. This is one of those areas that in home economics has had less stress, I would say, less emphasis in recent years, and 4-H is able to keep that element there. They do a lot of work, and especially I think in Clackamas County, I think we're when I go to the state fair, it seems like, maybe it's just me, but it seems like Clackamas County is always overrepresented because we have so many 4-Hers who qualify at the state level. So as a county, we are very committed to 4-H and to Extension and everything they do at both for urban youth and rural youth, and we'll all be at the fair. So
You bet.
we'll come down and do a photo because Gary is standing there with nothing to do.
Okay, so I'm going to face this direction over here. That's great. And you can see me, I can see you. Big smiles. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Again. There we go. Big smiles. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful.
Very cool.
Okay, that brings us to citizen communication. And the first card I have is for Richard Langdon. And I forgot to say, under citizen communication, this is an opportunity for citizens to address the commission on items that are not on the agenda. And we would ask that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes and give your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Richard Langdon, Portland, Oregon. You have my address on record from many previous times being here. First, I would like to say that we are making some progress on mobile food cart and ZDO issues. I will address them next week or when time allows. My viewers at home have been very excited to see who their commissioners are. My last week was just amazing. My inbox was just jammed with viewers. Thank you, viewers. It was fantastic. The general sense in reading the emails is that they're very positive and they're very impressed with two commissioners, Commissioner Jamie Damon and with Commissioner Paul Savas, and, in my opinion, rightfully so. Now, last week at the business meeting, Commissioner Jim Bernard equated our group's request for the commissioner's help in having a code violation citation removed where no code exists with asking the commissioners, and I'm going to quote Commissioner Bernard, "Can you fix a ticket?" Now, if our group had violated a law and then had so little integrity to have the audacity to ask the commissioners to fix a ticket, then Commissioner Bernard would be correct in his analogy. So, to be fair, given such a bold statement by Commissioner Bernard, after last week's business meeting, I asked Commissioner Bernard to bring with him this week the zoning code that was violated by our group and to read the part or parts that speak to mobile food carts in written word. So, we will wait while Commissioner Bernard, Jim Bernard, reads the part or parts of the zoning code that speak to mobile food carts. Commissioner Bernard?
This is an opportunity for you to speak, and the commission doesn't usually respond under citizen communication. So
I'll wait.
You
Perhaps the
understand
commissioner
that.
will reconsider.
What?
I'll wait for the remainder of my 3 minutes. Perhaps the commissioner will reconsider. I have another 58 seconds.
Well, we need to move on. If you're not speaking, then thank you very much. If you have something else you want to say, then you should go ahead and speak. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next item.
That concludes the remarks then, so
Yeah.
we'll count the timer off.
Right. So the timer is, we aren't going to run the timer anymore. So turn it off.
I understand. Perhaps there will be a reconsideration. It probably is smart to have a reconsideration and read it. I'm coming next week as well.
And you're welcome to come back next week. So,
Thank you.
So thank you very much. And the next card
I've been checking it. I actually have 10 seconds left.
You have that time to address us. So if you want to tell us something, you can. But if you're not addressing us, then
My time is up.
We're done.
Thank you very much for your comments, and my viewers didn't think Jim Bernard would read it either. I'll be here next week. Thanks.
The next card I have is for Les Poole.
Somebody's cell phone.
Before I start, if you just hold the clock for a second, I've noticed that sometimes electronic devices are on and there's feedback. And in the future, I'd request that you remind us all to turn off the Blackberries and things, because I may be one of the people that's done it without even knowing it. Les Poole, 15115 Southeast Lee, Milwaukee. Just a few quick comments, primarily about the situation with urban renewal. As you probably well know, there were about 11,700 signatures turned in yesterday to the elections office, so the citizens can be aware and vote on urban renewal in the future. I appreciate Jamie's comments at the meeting last week, by the way, and the acknowledgement that it would be a good idea to do some of the meetings later in the day so we can keep citizen participation on the front burner. 10 a.m. is tough for folks. We had a big crowd here the 28th, and I certainly would like to see more of that. It gives you a better cross-section. Interestingly, I understand that the county is looking at a competing measure for urban renewal. It's called Companion, but I think competing would be definitely the right word. And it raises a lot of integrity issues. And if that's the direction that is taken, I'm sure it'll be met by a response by my fans on television, we'll call them that. I got concerns about that intergovernmental agreement that was an agreement when signed. Since that time, it's the only word I hear is that it's a binding contract. Certainly there's no reason for the county to consider withdrawing from that agreement, especially in lieu of the urban renewal vote. Looks like in November there's going to be a vote probably, and that's going to keep this issue on the table. And it's countywide. It's not just about light rail. Regarding agreements, I would just say that in terms of the Milwaukee Light Rail project, there was an LPA selected, environmental impact statement done in 2003. We had some interesting maneuvering that took place in Milwaukee. Suddenly we were down at Kellogg Lake trying to park it on a place that was totally inappropriate. We were going to put 500 cars on parkland. We discovered in Milwaukee that it was a deeded donated park named Kronberg and Kellogg Lake Park. And obviously what I'm saying is this process has gone on for years, and there has been so many agreements broken I can't even count them all. During that time, we went through the Clearwater situation as well with the sewer project. Good news is yesterday there was a ribbon cutting at Tri-Cities at the sewer plant. Special thanks to Paul Savas for being involved. And I appreciate your time today. I'll be back.
The next card I have is Steve Shop.
Steve Shop, Tualatin, 3 minutes. This is how you avoid the voters. You know, in Tualatin, we had an urban renewal district expansion. The plan was to expand it by $120 million. And there was a lot of disputes over that plan. The district had already been in force for 35 years. There was a huge increment. And borrowing another $120 million had a lot of opponents, just like the issue going on here. And even though the commissioners have some conflict resolution expertise, they don't seem to want to engage the public. So ultimately what happened in Tualatin is the city council had a town hall where they actually could engage the public, interact with the public, exchange questions, get answers, refute them, and have a civil conversation. I was there for the entire town hall. It was very civil. And towards the end of the 4-hour event, the mayor, one of your friends, Lou Ogden, and Metro Councilor Carl Hostiga both admitted to the huge crowd there that the urban renewal plan, like all urban renewal plans, would force additional fees and taxes and service cuts. Granted, they advised that they thought that was a better use of money to engage in another urban renewal plan to provide mixed-use development along with the rest of the agenda. But the fact of the matter is this Board of County Commissioners is deliberately avoiding interacting with the public. You're obstructing the public will, and you're doing so in a way that is only causing more enemies and more disputes. And so if you really want to get to the public will and do this honestly, where it arrives at the truth, you'll end up, just like in Tualatin, where there'll be a rejection of the plan and there will be no urban renewal. The only way you continue on your path is through not coming to the truth and obstructing the voters. And if you need to call Mayor Ogden and Carl Hostiga, maybe you can get their opinion, and they'll tell you what the truth is. As you well know, urban renewal will simply take money from police and fire and parks and libraries and schools, the programs that fund 4-H, the programs that would fund domestic and child abuse programs that you so urgently need to find more money for, and it'll happen over decades. The county plans on borrowing at least $100 million. In debt service, it'll chew through probably $150 million in property tax revenue and will generate very little new revenue. It's inexcusable. And I suggest you have a town hall, interact with the public, and get this settled honestly. Thank you.
I don't have any other cards for citizen comment, so we will move on to the public hearing portion. And our first public hearing is on the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office Public Safety Levy Proposal. Long title, but it is a public safety levy proposal. And Steve, the county administrator, is going to introduce this.
Yes, thank you, Chair Lehan and Board of County Commissioners. I'm Steve Wheeler, County Administrator. First, a bit of context. In November of 2006, the initial public safety levy was passed, and it is that levy that is coming close to its termination. So for the past several months, there have been considerable board discussions through study sessions about what the shape of a successor levy should be, should there be a successor levy, et cetera, et cetera. So I mention that context because this didn't just drop out of the sky and land here today. It's been quite thoroughly discussed and vetted out by the board. So briefly, here's what we have before you. We have a resolution which would renew the existing 24.8 cents per thousand assessed value for a public safety levy. Specifically, it refers the attached notice of measure election to be filed with the county clerk and placed on the November 8th ballot. At 24.8 cents per $1,000 assessed value, the estimates are it would produce an annual revenue of between $9.7 million and approximately $10.9 million, and that would be through the year 2016 and 2017. Briefly, the levy would maintain the 84 jail beds open since the initial passage of the levy. It would retain approximately 19 Sheriff's Patrol deputies added by that levy, and it would continue the Sheriff's expanded drug enforcement program to arrest drug traffickers and those involved in drug-related crimes such as identity theft, property crimes, and child abuse and child neglect. So it is a renewal, it's a continuation, and we recommend that you adopt the resolution which would have it filed with the clerk to be placed on the November 8th ballot. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff on this time? We have discussed this at numerous study sessions. With that, I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak on this item. I don't have any cards for, or I do.
Ernie.
I do, Ernie, yes. Okay, Ernie Platt, I do have.
Thank you, and good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Ernie Platt, 14929 Southeast 187th Damascus. We have a Sheriff's Department and an operation here in Clackamas County that I think we're all quite proud of, and I would suggest that is in part due to the levy that was passed 5 years ago, as you just heard. That will be expiring this next year. I simply am here to speak in support of this resolution that's before you and ask for your support as well for the passage this November of a continuation for another 5 years of this levy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think you have another card coming.
Okay. Les Poole would like to speak on this item, on the sheriff's levy.
Thanks for letting me come and speak again. I wasn't paying attention to the agenda and didn't even know that this was on it, but I'm just here to support this investment. Things are rough out there. The economy's tough. The police in general are spread pretty thin. Had a real odd experience in my neighborhood. I live in a pretty mellow area, lots of trees, lots of nice homes, good suburban area. But like so many of them, you end up, unfortunately, with a drug house down the street. And when the CERT team went by my place for the first time probably in the history of my neighborhood about a week ago, I saw how they responded and how I watched for hours as the sheriff, or I should say as the officers attempted to get these two guys to come out, and eventually they did surrender. But I can't imagine how much is being spent just on that one incident. And as you know, the crime problem at Town Center in some places, I predict the same situation coming if we dump all the parking in the terminus in Oak Grove for the current light rail line. And hopefully in this budget there's money for that. We build light rail, how are we going to police the section of it that's in the county? It's just a question that troubles me. And I don't want to be perceived as someone that's totally anti-light rail. I'm against the idea of building too much light rail that we really don't have a need for. I'm against light rail not being properly patrolled or policed because the money isn't there. So I'm certainly in support of this bond measure, and we'll look forward to voting for it in November. Thank you.
I would just clarify that this is not a bond measure. It is a levy, and it is a replacement levy, so it will not increase any level of protection. It continues what we currently have. So just to clarify that. Richard Langdon wanted to speak on the police levy.
Thank you for letting me speak. Should I be checking the clock here? Or are you going to shut it off?
You have 3 minutes
Thank
to
you.
testify.
Perfect. Do I get 3 minutes every time? No, really, seriously, last time I was cut off. I don't want that to happen again.
You have 3 minutes to testify. When you stop testifying, we'll ask you to.
No, and I'll let
complete
you know when I'm stopping and testifying. I'll let you know. Don't cut the clock off on me again. All right. I'd like to support any police services in Clackamas County. And the as we all know, there is a budget that supports county services. And budgets have a set amount of money at the other end of it. This is how much money we need. This is where we're going to collect this money. And here's how it's going to all be used. So once again, we want to make sure that the police have as much money as they need. Last week, Commissioner Jamie Damon lent a little bit of support to the idea of a vote for urban renewal, which of course has to do with a budget and taxes, bringing the money in and having the money go out. She suggested that people vote only within the urban renewal district, whether or not they should, this should be formed, and without getting into the intricacies of, and they're not really that big a deal. You know, people make a big deal about tax increment financing, and it's complicated. It'd take a minute and a half to explain, and the citizens will all understand it, trust me. I've showed people how it works for years, 37 years. I've been involved in it. And it's a good system, but it needs to be voted on by the entire citizens of Clackamas County because they are affected, just like the police are affected. Everyone needs to vote, not just people within the urban renewal district when it comes time. And if that vote comes to, if that opportunity to vote comes to pass, it can't be just the people in the district. I'm done speaking now, 57 seconds to go. There you go. Thanks.
I don't have anyone else to comment on this, but I would like to invite Sheriff Roberts to comment if you are interested in commenting on this.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and my name is Craig Roberts, Sheriff of Clackamas County, and to start off, I just want to thank the Board of County Commissioners for a lot of thoughtful consideration. We've had a lot of discussions up until this point, and want to thank the Board for taking the time to hear all the issues. I think that's really important. I did want to extend a special thanks to the citizens of Clackamas County that supported the levy back in 2006. And to take you back in history a little bit, you know, we did have 84 jail beds that were closed and had been so since 2002. That really tied our hands in providing what I considered quality public safety in Clackamas County. At that time, we were releasing forced released inmates into the community, approximately 3,000 a year. With the passage of that levy, we were able to reduce that to 289. That's about a 91% reduction. So I was pleased that we were able to make sure that we're holding those offenders accountable. Second of all, it gave us ability to add 19 patrol deputies to areas that did not have full-time coverage. It really helped reduce our response times and provide better public safety. And then last, it gave us ability, as you may recall, in 2006 we had a significant methamphetamine problem at that particular time. A lot of it was directed regarding methamphetamine labs. Thanks to the legislature, we passed some laws regarding pseudoephedrine. The labs reduced, but the trafficking in methamphetamine continued, and some other drugs that we've talked about have increased in the distribution, such as heroin and heroin-related deaths. So this levy gave us ability to form a Clackamas County Interagency Drug Task Force and gave us ability to really step up our efforts. They've done an incredible job since the levy was passed. And having the support to continue that effort really gives us ability to make sure that we're addressing those issues in our community. So I want to thank the board and the citizens for passing that initial levy, and thank you for this time.
Thank you. And with that, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Oh, yeah, I guess we should. I don't have the. You have it.
Chair Lehan, I move we approve the resolution placing the renewal of the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office Public Safety Local Option Levy on the November 8th, 2011 ballot.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Savas and seconded by Commissioner Bernard that we approve the resolution placing the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office Public Safety Local Option Levy on the November ballot. Is there discussion on this item?
Well, I want to say that while this version of the levy does not look like the version I would most prefer, I do think it's really important. I think we need to pass this levy in this form in order to provide crucial support to a comprehensive public safety system in Clackamas County. And so I intend fully to support this. I think whatever your starting place was in these conversations, it's essential that we have a well-funded, comprehensive public safety system. This is a key part of it, and I intend to vote yes.
Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Bernard.
Well, I think it's important to point out one thing that the sheriff talked about, and that is the reduction of forced release in jails, a 91% decrease. And that's significant. If you've ever had an opportunity to look at the matrix system and how that happened, when you get to 3,000 people, you're going into some areas that I think increase the risk in our community. So I think it's important to note that 91% reduction. But also crime rate in Clackamas County is down, as it is across the country. And that's because I believe we have done all we could to support the sheriff, and police departments, and state police in the country, throughout the country, throughout Oregon. Actually, I should say we've made an effort to support them as much as we could. The state police budgets are being cut. Community corrections budgets are at risk. And those are important investments too, and we're not making those. But Clackamas County citizens and their past support and their future support will enable the sheriff to move Clackamas County forward. It already is perhaps one of the state's finest organizations, thanks to the hard work of the men and women who work for the sheriff and for the undersheriffs. And I'm very proud of Clackamas County Sheriff Department. I remember once going up to the mountains and somebody said something about, we're not seeing many patrols, and mentioned that. And I think it was a week later they said, wow, we got some action. So hopefully citizens will continue to communicate with us and let us know where they feel they aren't getting the help. And the sheriff has always responded well, and I'm very proud of the service we provide and the fact that we're able to reduce that forced release significantly with a small investment. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Commissioner Damon.
So this levy has my full support for all the reasons that have been stated prior. But also because having lived in the unincorporated area since 1996, and I've talked with the sheriff about this and with others in the sheriff's office, I have seen there was a period of time when there was one sheriff who covered the area out where I live all the way up to government camp, and there were periods of the time in the middle of the night where we had nobody. And that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to our rural communities. It's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. The sheriff's office recognizes that. The levy, the community recognized that by passing this levy 5 years ago, and we need to continue this. It needs to be maintained, renewed. We need to retain the deputies in the jail beds that we have. We can't go back to the pre-levy times. We cannot have our communities be poster children for methamphetamine and meth labs as they were at one time. So I fully support this.
I don't want to necessarily repeat everything that's been said. I as well support the sheriff's levy, and I also wanted to point out that this is a renewal, and it's not going to increase any taxes. And but I also need to point out that in times where costs are rising and budgets increase or needs increase, the budgets really haven't. And so I know the sheriff department has shown great restraint in trying to work with providing as much service with fewer dollars. And that, though they would indeed like to actually see this, a little bit more money from a levy, they've acknowledged how tough it is out there for all of us, and that they've done their best, and they're going to do and maintain the same level and not ask for more, that they're going to live within this amount of money. So I think it ought to be pointed out, and again, I want to thank everyone out there for their service and recognize what a great job it is that they've been doing, and we do still have hot spots out there. There are areas, I know in my community, where we still have issues. They don't go away. They might move around a little bit, but they don't go away. So it's needed, and they're doing a great job, and I appreciate their support.
Yes, I will weigh in on this as well, and like Commissioner Savas, want to stress that this is a continuation of an existing levy. It does not increase taxes. It's held right where we were before, and that in spite of the fact that costs for the sheriff's office have increased over the last 5 years from where they were 5 years ago, and yet we're holding it there. So I want to caution people about any expectations that this will increase services. This is a continuation of what we have done before, and if we fail to pass it, it means severe cutbacks in service. So that's why it's so important. It is an odd way to finance something. If we pass it, I don't think in 5 years from now we will have any less need for it. And even though this has been very effective, particularly this last 5 years has been very effective on reducing methamphetamine crimes, as often occurs, the crime issues have sort of shifted, and the expense issues have shifted. There are different sets of victims, different drugs that become the focus. So the need is every bit as great, even though we were successful in what we set out to do there. And something else I was going to say, but I forgot it. Anyway, this is certainly worth public support to pass this in November, and I will be in favor of it as well. If there are no other comments on this, then I will ask all those in favor of placing this renewal on the ballot signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Sounds like it passed 5-0 unanimously, and we will look forward to that in the fall. And that brings us to our next public hearing, which is a resolution supporting investing in prevention services to protect and shelter vulnerable people from abuse and family violence. And County Administrator has intro remarks on this as well.
I do. Thank you, Chair Lehan and members of the Board of County Commissioners. Again, I'm Steve Wheeler, County Administrator, and thank you for reading the title of that resolution. The background is it's presented as a companion to the renewal of the Public Safety Local Option Levy that you just adopted a minute ago. This resolution recitals describe significant facts and concerns with domestic violence and child sex abuse incidents. So the resolution directs two things. First of all, creating a pool of $500,000 to establish grants to community groups that provide assistance and protection to domestic violence and child abuse situations and victims. And we will develop a request for proposal process to establish the distribution of those funds. The second part is that we work with appropriate community groups to identify ongoing unmet needs in the realm of domestic violence and child abuse, and then develop a funding proposal for the May 2012 ballot that would consider how we might solve some of those things. So in those two general parameters, we still have some work to do, but this sets out a structure for moving forward in this arena, and we intend to do that if you do, as we recommend, adopt this resolution today. I know there are some speakers here, so we'll let them have a chance and then move toward the resolution. Thank you.
Okay. All right, there's no questions of staff. I will open the public hearing on this item, and I have a number of cards on this, and the first one is Tanya Hunt, Melissa Earlman, if you want to come, Earlbaum, if you want to come together, that's fine also.
I need my
Call them two at a
companion.
time.
I'm Tanya Hunt, with Children's Center in Oregon City, and I'm here today to thank you for your consideration of this issue. It's such a difficult issue to address. It's hard to believe that in Clackamas County, a county that is so rich in so many resources, and yet there are still children who go to bed at night scared, and children who look forward to school, not because they're ready to go back to school, but because they're looking for a safe place for a few hours every day. It's hard to imagine that women and children live in fear in this community, and I commend you for looking that issue in the eye and recognizing the growing and devastating need it represents in Clackamas County, and to be willing to look to the future and what can be done to address that growing need. And at the Children's Center, we are faced with that need every day, and we are proud and humbled by the opportunity to partner with law enforcement agencies, State Department of Human Service, Child Welfare Division, local pediatricians, mental health providers, families who are concerned about the welfare of children. But those costs, those services come at a cost. And it is a cost that I believe this community prioritizes and believes in investing. And while the Children's Center and so many other nonprofits do all we can to partner with public dollars through private fundraising, we simply can't do it alone. And there has to be partnership. So I am so thankful that you all have been willing to talk with me multiple times over the last couple of months and have been willing to look at this difficult issue and the needs of those children who do not have a voice and who will probably never come before you to testify. And yet you heard their voice and you have responded with compassion and with leadership. And I appreciate that, and I know that our community appreciates it, and our community is safer because of it. We support this measure, and we ask for your support. It will move us forward in both meeting the immediate needs of women and children who are living with violence now, but also look ahead to how we stabilize the service provision for what we fear will not be a problem that simply goes away in the next 9 months or 18 months. So thank you for your support and your consideration of this.
Thank you.
Domestic violence and child abuse are complex issues. There are many factors, impressions.
Maybe you could just give your name
sorry.
and address.
Melissa Earlbaum, Clackamas Women's Services, and the address is 5288 Broadway in West Lynn. These are complex issues with deep-ridden oppressions and barriers, a lot of factors to consider, and they really need a champion to push through the system and to acknowledge these very complex needs. And we thank you. I thank you on behalf of Clackamas Women's Services and our community and the survivors we serve for being a champion for this issue. It is important and it is imperative. This morning, as I went into my office, I was sharing with one of the survivors that we work with where I was going today, and she was quite surprised, and I shared with her what's been going on and the conversations that have been going on, and she said, I quote, she said, "I didn't know they cared. Please thank them for listening." And I thought that was important for you to hear. It's been a long road, and it's been a lot of hard conversations and compromises and collaboration working along the way. I hope that we can work together moving forward. I hope that we can come together and support one another's initiatives. I certainly know that we are in support of making sure the public safety levy passes, and I hope the Sheriff's Office and the Peace Officers Association feel the same way about helping us support this important issue more moving forward in the future. And I thank you for your leadership on the issue.
Thank you. The next two I have are Lois Wyden and Deborah Shorten.
Good morning. I'm Lois Wyden, 19219 Southeast Owls Rest Court, Milwaukee, 97267, which means I'm really unincorporated Clackamas County. I am also the president of the board of directors of Clackamas Women's Services. And I'm here to thank you, incredibly thank you, for bringing this issue to the public. It's kind of been behind closed doors in many, many ways. The issue of child abuse, the issue of domestic violence. So your leadership in being willing to step forward and bring this out to our community, we try very hard in the agency to bring this forward, but you as leaders of our community have stepped forward and said, this is an issue for all of us. I want to make it real clear that we are in total support of the public safety levy. We will be out there because without the sheriff, how can we exist? But without us, how can he do his job and just leave the victims alone? No, we're here to help him, to partnership with the sheriff's department, to partnership with you. We really thank you for being willing to bring this issue forward in a financial way. Not only have you stepped forward in a public way, but you're willing to put money, hard money, to help us. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
My name is Deborah Shorten, and my address is 2835 Southeast Holman Street. And I do live in Portland, 97202, but I volunteer my time and energy to Clackamas Women's Services. A society is judged by how well they take care of its most vulnerable. The Children's Levy is critical to further the job of caring for some of our most vulnerable populations, abused children and victims of domestic violence. I fully support the Children's Levy and the proposed $500,000 bridge fund. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And the next card I have is James Schock.
Good morning. Actually, it's Shook. My name is Jim Shook. I am the Vice President of the Board of Directors of Clackamas Women's Services. I've been on the board there for about 5.5 years, and recently finished a term as the Treasurer of the Board of Directors, so I'm pretty intimately familiar with the costs of these services that we take to provide women and children of Clackamas County. In the 5.5 years that I've been on the board, I've seen an exponential increase in domestic violence here in the county. I think we've all been witnesses to some of the recent events. I'm disappointed that Clackamas Women's Services and the Children's Center are not participating in the November 2011 levy that you just passed. On the other hand, that doesn't keep me from being in full support of that levy. We understand the importance of the sheriff and everything he does. I was here a few weeks ago when I heard Sheriff Roberts testify and relay some statistics about crime being down, and I believe Commissioner Bernard just referred to that, some of those same statistics about crimes against persons being down in Clackamas County. Well, I'd just like to remind the board that that is not true for victims of domestic violence and domestic violence-related homicide. Those crimes are drastically up in Clackamas County. Well, I'd like to thank you, though, for your resilience and for your efforts to put something on the ballot in May of 2012. I'm here to voice my support for that, as well as the bridge grant that is before you today to vote on. I really appreciate all of your efforts in taking care of the women and children and their safety in Clackamas County. Thank you.
Thank you. And those are all the cards I have on this item. So if there's no one else, I will close the public hearing on this and ask if someone would like to make a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we approve a resolution supporting investing and prevention services to protect and shelter vulnerable people from abuse and family violence.
And I second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bernard and seconded by Commissioner Damon that we approve this resolution. And I'll ask if there's any discussion. Commissioner Bernard, to the motion.
First, I'd like to say that we couldn't invest enough in protection of these vulnerable children. I wish we had millions we could do that. We could invest in this. But I think this also talks about prevention and protection and shelter. All very important things that we need to invest in. But it's also important to know that in this economy, people are uneasy and uncomfortable, and this kind of stuff is actually increased. Violence against women and children continues to grow when unemployment continues to be so high. And it's important that that we make this initial investment, and hopefully the voters will be behind us 100%. I'm hoping that we'll look at working with this organization and others to these organizations and others to look at what kind of money would people really support. Would 6 cents, 3.5, whatever works. And I know some polling's been done that probably indicates much. If it's too high, people won't invest. But I think first, this initial investment is very important. But frankly, we need to get people back to work so that their homes, they can go home and feel safe, and that these kind of situations won't continue to increase. And also, I would say that, thanks to the hard work of the sheriff, as well as Clackamas Women's Services and the Children's Center, more children are being identified, and that's important. Also, the partnerships with the schools, with many other nonprofit organizations have brought this tragedy, to the public, and the public needs to respond in May, if not actually much sooner. I mean, I'm sure there are fundraising efforts taking place today that that both organizations and others are hard at work raising money. So hopefully people will, I assume we're going to have some of this information on the web, that people might be able to go to these organizations and look at some of these nonprofits that they may be able to contribute immediately to bridge the gap. One of the things we're talking about is some matching dollars. I mean, it'd be great if we can, when we come up with 500,000, that another 500,000 or another million comes along and really helps make some significant progress. So look to our website, look to Clackamas Women's Services, look to all these organizations that provide this service, and donate.
Thank you. Other discussion?
Yeah, I just want to first acknowledge how much work and effort that Commissioner Leininger has put towards this, and along with Tanya and Melissa. I know we've had a lot of conversations over the last few weeks, and I've been again learning more about all the different organizations that are out there in the last 7 months of being here. So I just want to thank her and acknowledge that. Our system is broke. And I mean broke, well, financially too, but what I really meant is that we really don't, there's not really a good system in place And of course, I'm looking for models and I'm looking for help to see what we can do to emulate better models that support all the needs out there as best as reasonably possible with the dollars that are out there. There's kids out there that aren't being abused, but there are kids that are out there that are homeless. They're living in cars or living under a bridge, and they're not being abused, and their parents love them, and they're hungry. There's just a lot of different elders that have spent their life, or people that are handicapped that are taken advantage of. There's just so many needs out there, and I think that we need a system that addresses those somehow. And then, in light of our financial situation in this country, in this state, in the county, it's very trying. I just hope that when we talk about bridge funding, that there is something out there on the other end when this money is expended, that there is an opportunity and that we do have the support in many different ways. So I just hope that we're all conscientious of our financial predicament, and hopefully there are better days ahead and that are not as bleak as they are. But I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned about funding for a lot of different things. I'd also like to point out that what Clackamas Women's Services provide and what the Children's Center provide are not just unincorporated Clackamas County, or those incidences aren't necessarily within the jurisdiction of the sheriffs. I mean, there are cities. There's no borders to this, and that we have the part of the system and the solution works closely with our cities, where sometimes these issues occur, and that we have a partnership and again a system that addresses it wholly. So I just want to again thank everyone and just express my support and my cautious concern about economics in the future.
Well, I think in the project of making a stronger community, there are a bunch of different roles. And one of the roles is Lyndon Johnson, who signs the civil rights legislation into law. And one of the roles is Rosa Parks, who sits at the front of the bus. I think in the last couple of months, a team of people has done a great job of bringing the needs of abused women and kids to the front of the bus. We've got some bridge funding in place. And now we're going to launch into a comprehensive look at where the unmet needs are to protect these families. And we're going to figure out how to meet them. So thank you, and I look forward to being part of that project.
Just a couple comments as well. I mean, I fully support this resolution. I'm very pleased and proud of the partnerships between the Sheriff's Office and the Clackamas Women and Children's Services, as well as the Children's Center, to get us to this point. But we all recognize that the conversation, in many ways, while it's a continuation of a discussion that's we've been holding, and like you say, maybe in dark rooms or behind closed doors, only because people don't want to talk about it. Now this is out in the open, and this is a conversation that not only we need to continue to have, but we need to have with our public. I've said this before, and I'll say this now, that I fully expect that when we engage the community in understanding the magnitude of these issues in our county, that our public is going to step up, and they are going to fund more money for these services. But it's our job together to make this case. To make this case in an honest way about what's really happening and talk about this and engage our communities. Our business community needs to be involved, our rural communities, urban communities, the Sheriff's Office, all our providers. We need to define this public safety concern for our county and figure out what it's going to cost to get there and make a case to the public so they can step up and help us meet this need. And I'm confident that the public will do that if we make that case. So,
thank you. I would like to say that over the last couple of months, I know everyone on this board has struggled with trying to craft a solution with limited resources to support both of these elements, which is the sheriff's levy, the enforcement side, and then the child abuse and neglect, and the work that in terms of caring for victims that goes on at the other side. And we have been back and forth trying to figure out the best way to proceed on that. I think we've found a way to move forward. I do want to mention in this that it is a partnership. I mean, the good thing about this struggle has been that everyone wants the best for everyone else. I mean, the sheriff's office really does want the best for their partners in working on the abuse side, and everyone on the other side is supporting the sheriff's levy as well. So it has been while we've been struggling with how best to do this, it hasn't been a battle of people who wished ill on the other one. There is a third partner in this, though, that hasn't been mentioned, and that is the DA's office. And much of the work that goes on at both Clackamas Women's Services and the Children's Center provides that important link between enforcement and conviction, because a lot of the work they do is collecting evidence, and good evidence that will stand up in court, and working with the DA's office to actually get convictions. So it's hard to say that one piece of any of this is more important than the other, which is why we've struggled so much to find a solution that will work as best we can for everyone. And I also do want to say, having with the people who've come forward today, want to thank especially the board members who came forward, because if ever there's a thankless job, it's being a board member, where you get no pay and and you do very hard work, and huge amounts of responsibility sit on your shoulders. And so all of us owe anyone who serves in that capacity a great deal of thanks. And Commissioner Bernard.
I'd just like to add one more thing, that as a small business owner, I always think about investments. What's the return on this investment? And one of my brother works in Colorado and works with drug and alcohol, people who are addicted to drug and alcohol. He says that 80% of them have been abused. And so if you think about investment in protection, identification, and shelter of people who are being abused, it's a really good investment in the future. It's a good investment in the sheriff's department, because and in the safety of our citizens, because people who are addicted to alcohol and drugs kill people. They kill people on the road. They kill them in their homes. And so it is a great investment in the future of Clackamas County. And it's important that we make a substantial investment to protect Clackamas County's future and the lives of all the women and children and men who are abused. So thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, if there's no further discussion, I will ask all those in favor of approving this resolution supporting prevention services to protect and shelter vulnerable people from abuse and family violence. If you support this resolution, to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it passes unanimously. And thank you to everyone who came and spoke on this item. With that, we don't have any discussion items today, but we will proceed to the consent agenda. And I will ask the clerk to read the consent agenda items by title only. You will be able to get the full packet of the information online if you want more than the title.
Okay, under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Community Solutions for Clackamas County and the State of Oregon Department of Energy and Weatherization Services. Approval of an interagency agreement with Clackamas County Juvenile Department for Juvenile Crime Prevention Services. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon Judicial Department 5th Judicial District for support and treatment, for support of treatment courts. Approval of Amendment Number 7 to the Intergovernmental Agreement with the State of Oregon Department of Human Services, Senior and People with Disabilities Division for the provision of services to Clackamas County residents age 60 and over.
And then continuing on the Department of Transportation and Development, approval of supplemental project agreement number 27738 with the Oregon Department of Transportation to retrofit the Canby Ferry hydraulic drive system and convert to an electric system. Approval of amendment number 3 to an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation for emergency relief program project funding. And approval to purchase a 2011924H Caterpillar loader from Peterson Machinery Company for the Transportation Maintenance Division. Under elected officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes, and under Water Environment Services, approval of a construction services agreement for Clackamas County Service District Number 1 for the Intertie 2 Diversion Project C Compensatory Wetland Project. Thank you. That completes our consent calendar.
I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bernard, seconded by Commissioner Savas, that we approve the consent agenda. Any discussion on any of these items? If not, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously and brings us to Commissioner Communication. Anyone dying to go first?
Well, I'll jump in. It's been I think it's been 9 days now. Oddly enough, of the first, I think, just such a long stretch in the last 7 months. But in the last 9 days, I realized this morning when I sat down in my office that I actually turned my computer on for the first time in 9 days. I have been so busy or at a conference or at meetings that I've been, just sort of a little bit behind and just trying to keep up. But so at our Tuesday work sessions, we usually have opportunities to, talk about things and raise issues and ongoing things. And we haven't had that in several Tuesdays now. The opportunity, enough time, just really time. And there's been, again, meeting conflicts and so forth, and we all have these commitments. And next Tuesday will be the fair. The fair happens to start Tuesday morning, and we'll be there. And then we'll be back here in the afternoon. So there's things that do happen that have got in the way of our ability to work together in our work sessions. There's been some things that have come up that we normally talk about as commissioners on Tuesdays. We kind of nicknamed it Round Robin, and I haven't had a chance to do that in several weeks. So I have a couple things I did want to raise, and then maybe we can get to some of the other ones Tuesday. One of those, first of all, I'd like to just say that yesterday we had our first retreat, and I'm grateful that we had, I think a good session and commitment by our county commissioners, my fellow county commissioners, to attend and be there and engage in that. And, definitely first step, and we have scratched the surface, and that's great. I'm looking forward to, further commitments to work together as a team. Last Tuesday, I believe, or perhaps the Tuesday before, we had some legislative people to come and talk to us that represent us in Washington, D.C., tell us about what's going on. As you all know, that national issue going on currently is our debt crisis, national budgeting issues, and the way that's headed looks like, here in a few months we'll kind of realize, maybe getting a better idea where those cuts will take place, and they will take place at the state level, the national level, and down. It'll trickle on down to the county. I have tremendous concerns about our ability to meet all the services we currently provide today, and we are challenged whether we see an increase in bond rates and how that affects a number of things, but I still have concerns. I guess I would ask that we consider, or respectfully request that we consider maybe not necessarily a freeze, but a restraining from really any expenditures that are outside the budget until we have a better grasp of what's going on around us and how we're going to be impacted. With the development of some new policies recently and even some current policies, relatively with that, can't forget to mention that we've started a strategic plan process, and we've kind of we've brought that to a certain point, but we need to go the extra mile. We need to get the priorities and programs in place to make that whole. And my concern is with the lack of having that strategic plan completed and not having a full grasp of what our current policies are and our new policies, that we actually take everything that we bring and filter it through all those things ASAP, and that we kind of adhere to what we have. And if that's more on the lines of direction to staff, but I would certainly ask that my fellow board members support that we actually really take into account everything that's going on around us and look at it holistically. That's really all I have for today.
Okay. Anything else? Anything to add?
I do. Just last week, I took a lot of time at Commissioner Communication, so I'm not going to take as much time today. But I did want to say that on Saturday, I attended the Vietnam Veterans Memorial dedication in Canby. And as always, these memorials are powerful and moving. It was well attended. It was, it was particularly meaningful for me in that to listen to the general from the National Guard address the group and talking about how Vietnam was a helicopter war, given that my uncle, who is now, he's dying of Alzheimer's, he served 2 tours in Vietnam as a helicopter pilot. And, my father, who is his twin brother, talked a lot about the service of his brother. But my uncle never talked a lot about it. But it really struck a chord listening to the general talk about the importance of the pilots in that war, that it was the helicopter war. And if you drive on 99 through Canby, and you'll see the memorial has a helicopter just past Burgerville there as the keystone to that memorial. And I encourage you all to go out and take a look at it and stand under the helicopter and thank our veterans. I was just a little girl during Vietnam. I don't have a good sense of really the magnitude of what happened there. But it's these memorials just remind us continually of the service of the folks in our community and people like my uncle. So I was proud to be there, and I pretty much cried almost the entire time. On a happy note, I did go to the Oregon Farmers Market, Oregon City Farmers Market on Saturday. I hadn't been there before, and they received an award on Saturday morning. I wasn't there for that award, but I did manage to spend every penny that I had in my wallet at the farmers market, much to my surprise, honestly. Bought a present for my brother, present for my husband, food for breakfast the next morning, food for dinner. I was very impressed with the farmers market. Had great conversation with the folks from the Extension Service, from the Master Gardeners program there, and we'll definitely be going back to the Oregon City Farmers Market to add that to my list of farmers market that I don't know how I'm going to get to every Saturday, but I'm going to have to space them out or schedule them or something. But I encourage y'all to get out there and do that as well.
Actually, they're on Wednesdays and Sundays, so you can go,
I can go 3
pretty
days
much
a week.
5 days a
5
week,
days a
actually,
week.
probably.
Go 5
around
days
the
a week.
county. Well, one thing that was on the consent agenda was the county fair, the Canby Ferry, which while many of you may never have used, it's a great historic ferry. I try to use it at least once a month, and we were successful in getting a grant to retrofit that. Actually, it'll be. I was on it the other day, and I asked the guy had he heard when they were going to do it, and he didn't know that. And I don't see anything in here, but certainly it will require some notification of the community. They actually have pretty good signs, because there have been a few times I've started to head down the road and it said ferry closed. Didn't have to drive 5 miles to figure that out. Also, the county fair again is this starts next Tuesday, and also the rodeo, which is an important part of the county fair. They're great partners with the fair. I'm the liaison to the fair board. Try to attend every meeting I possibly can. Great bunch of people who, again, do it for no money, who have really done a great job, along with the new executive director. I don't know when you're no longer new.
People keep asking me that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she's probably been there. I'm close to a year, but she's doing a fantastic job. There are some fine investments. Next year, they've actually going through the process of bidding on replacement of the porta potties, which actually came from, I can never remember the name, but I always want to say the Bhagwan group in Eastern Oregon. Were shipped in, the Rajneesh. Were shipped in many years ago, and as you can imagine, they're in very bad shape. And that board has worked really hard to fulfill what seems like a strange dream replacement of the potties. But those, I believe, will be done this winter. So next year there will be new porta potties. But, a lot of people invest a lot of time in the county fair. There are a lot of buildings that are far from great buildings that someday will be replaced, where the city or the county is participating or will soon in a plan for the county fairgrounds or event center. By the way, it's on the screen with the dates. The event center. And so hopefully that'll take place pretty soon. I know the board is excited to get through this county fair and move on to some future planning. So we'll all be there on Tuesday in the parade, I believe. We'll be walking with one of our electric cars, and then there'll be a little speech making, and then we'll have an opportunity to visit some of the great projects, animal 4-H exhibits, and rodeo, and so I'm really excited about that. About the county fair starting the 16th through the 21st. So we'll see you at the county fair.
Thank you. And then I just have a couple of announcements. One is on the special grants project. We're pleased to announce the special grants project for the 2011-2012 fiscal year. Special grants are for nonprofits assisting the most vulnerable residents of Clackamas County. The deadline to apply for a grant is September 15, 2011 by 6 p.m. You can visit our webpage, which is on the screen, for more information, or contact our office at 503-655-8581 and get the full information about how to apply for a grant if you are a nonprofit. And then I want to just add on to what Commissioner Damon said, that regarding farmers markets, we have farmers markets almost every day of the week somewhere in the county. And we're finally getting into prime season. We've been mentioning them for a while, but now there's actually fruit and vegetables coming in that are every week better than the week before, although I think you still will have to wait for red tomatoes. And do visit the county fair. Remember that there are festivals likewise going on throughout Clackamas County. There will never be a weekend from now through for the rest of the summer and fall where you won't be able to find a festival somewhere to go to in Clackamas County. And other thing to keep in mind recreation-wise is that are the activities at Mount Hood. It is not just a winter place. There are fabulous summer activities, from mountain biking to bungee cord riding or whatever that's called, and many things. So if you're looking for activities to take your kids out to that's nearby, but lots of fun, don't have to go to Disneyland. You can just head up to Mount Hood. So, and with that, if there's no further business, we are adjourned.